Week 27, Abiding in God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Yogananda often emphasized more often to his disciples than to the general public, but also to everyone generally, for it was a universal teaching the importance of attunement. For divine understanding cannot be created, it must be perceived. To the disciples, Yogananda spoke of the importance of attunement with the Guru. To others, he urged the importance at least of attuning oneself to higher consciousness. Can an eagle rise without support from the sustaining air? Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. How can we abide in him, Jesus says, if my words abide in you? By words he meant not only his spoken words, but his vibrations, his consciousness, of which the words are only an expression. We must abide by the teachings, but we must also absorb those teachings into ourselves, that they become our own experience. For disciples of this path, the more in their hearts they live consciously in the presence of the Masters, the more they will find the divine presence living within them. And for all the truth seekers, whether disciples or not, the more they live sustained inwardly by the awareness of God's presence, the higher they will find themselves soaring in wisdom and joy. For the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, I am the source of everything. From me all creation emerges. Blessed with this realization, the wise, awe-stricken, adore me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. Om. Om.
This morning, a message of freedom, a message that's personal for each one of us. And this is from July 4th, 1926, to his beloved Guru Bhais. The longer I stay in America and study her closely, the more I appreciate her true principles and love her people as my own people that are in India. The craving for the highest spiritual realization is the common goal of Americans and Hindus, and this interests me the most. Of all the Western nations, America is the most spiritual next to India. So I love her. And in America, the veil of materialism and hurry can hide her true character from the superficial observer, increasing by contrast to mere enhance the beauty of her half-hidden golden ideals. I love and support the 100% Americanism, which excludes all superstition, meaningless dogma, untruth, and unkindness to brothers and brother nations, and which is solely and wholly founded on lasting principles of truth, true patriotism, international, interracial, and interreligious tolerance, and goodwill to all, for which her great men, like Lincoln and others, lived and died. My mission is to bring her people closer to one another and bind them by truth. I, in the highest spiritual discipline, so materially strongest that she is, she may also serve to be the best spiritual example in the world. Abiding in God, this beautiful day of freedom and liberation. Really, for so many people, there's a big celebration outside, but that inner celebration of returning to who we are. Each year, I take a look at myself, and am I a little bit less restrained by my ego? Am I a little less reactive? Am I a little less, negative? Am I able to maybe move quickly out of despair or darkness into the light? And each year we can take a look and take an inventory. It's a very powerful time of year, a time of light, a time of really understanding that self-realization is our freedom. It is the journey that we're all on. It's really, we're called to homecoming, each one of us today, because when we abide in God, we create an inner life where God lives. And this homecoming is magical. It's freedom from in a real true being into our authentic self, freedom from ego. And we are here today to really awaken our capacity for liberation of our soul. And remember that cosmic vibration of Om. Om is home, right? Home is where the Om is. That inner vibration brings us inward all the time, creating a channel, creating an opening for God to begin to live and abide in us fully. There's a beautiful story of a woman who was really feeling stuck, the opposite of freedom. She was feeling resistance, she was feeling fear, and she was feeling that she couldn't move out of despair and anger. And she was really, really stuck in her ego, struggling with life. And one day in desperation, she just prays for help. And an angel comes, a great master, to her with guidance and offers two gifts, one in each hand. He said, you can have either one. One is freedom and one is love. Which one do you choose? And she went inside. She went into attunement. She went in to find. Sometimes I think about that game, green light, red light. It's like, do I get a green light? That means that's a go. It's my heart chakra opening. A yellow light's like, and a red light's like, nope. And she went inside and she found that green light. She found a truth within her. And she said, I choose freedom. And the angel said, that is the wise choice. For now, you can truly realize love. And so this process that we're in of becoming free, it grows our capacity to love more, to hold that frequency, that vibration of love. And Yogananda defined attunement, right? One of the most powerful qualities that we can develop on the spiritual path. Yogananda said, attunement means being able to feel God or Guru's vibration. And that might be one of the aspects of God. It's a sense of love or a sense of calmness, a sense of wisdom, a sense of joy, a sense of light or power within us. And he says, and then to draw that vibration into ourselves, right? That's the abiding God. That's the opening our capacity to bring God into ourselves. And we do that by really defining and refining there's three aspects, Yogananda said, of attunement. And the first one is self-attunement. It's our capacity to really go inside. And sometimes we sit and we meditate, and first we feel, our unrest, some of the feelings of negativity. It feels uncomfortable. We got resistance. And to keep persevering and moving through that more and more and more, we're able to channel and move into the deepest part of ourselves where God resides. And there's a beautiful story about self-attunement with Krishna and Narada. Did I say that right? Narada, right? And they were both disguised as beggars, and they were in the Indian forest, and they're disguised as beggars, and they leave the forest and they come into the beginning of a town, and they see this big, big mansion where a merchant lived, and they knocked on the door and they said, "Please, we have nothing. Please, can you help us?" And he said, "Get away from here. Get away from me. I don't have time for this. Go find somebody else. I'm not here to give you anything. And please leave my home." And so they continued walking, and they walked and walked until they found a small little hut where a very poor farmer lived. And that poor farmer welcomed them in and said, "Come, I have not a lot, but come rest here. Come rest and be." And he went outside, and he had an old cow, and he milked that cow, and he shared all that milk with each one of them. And Narada looked at Krishna, like, wow, and Krishna just did a little smile, you know. At first, when the merchant was there, Narada was looked with some judgment, but Krishna still just smiled, You're just watching what happens. And so as they're leaving town, they come to a gathering place where all the townspeople are, and they said, "Oh my God, can you believe this? The merchant, he has doubled his wealth. Can you believe it? How can that be?" And then the poor farmer last night, he lost his beloved cow, that old cow, the only thing he had left. And Narada, he was just beside himself, and he pulled Krishna aside and he said, "Krishna, how can this be? This merchant was so selfish. He didn't care, he didn't help us, and yet he's rewarded with all this money and all this great wealth. It's not fair." And then that poor farmer who was so wonderful, why wasn't he given another? Why did he have to lose something that was so important for his survival? And Krishna was very, very, very clear. He said, the merchant believes that possessions will bring him happiness. And receiving even more, he will learn more quickly that only suffering comes from worldly attachments. And the poor farmer had great devotion to God, and his old cow was his last attachment. And because of it, now he is free. So these beautiful stories today of attunement show these examples of how there was an inner attunement, and how Krishna really held that example of kept tuning into that wisdom of, and Narada was moving in and out saying, this isn't right. This isn't fair. This people should be doing different. He had some judgments. He had some outrage, some unfairness. He was angry about it. And yet in the story, the beautiful lesson was how Krishna was able to stay steady in that divine channel, in that opening, steady with his understanding that God is leading the way and God knows exactly what he's doing. So Krishna was assisting us and showing us through example the lessons of self-attunement, and that we are here in this human experience to release attachments and desires for ego, that this homecoming into ourself is a process of illuminating, of bringing light, more and more of lifting, as Yogananda said, to bring that vibration of the divine, to draw that vibration into ourself. And what happens is a lot of times everything that's not in attunement with that vibration has to begin to move. I had that experience a few weeks ago where I just came down with this 103 fever and held on to it for quite a while. And it went through a series of symptoms. I won't give you all the details, but I watched, I really wish I could tell you that I was just like stayed in this absolute, non-attachment, surrender and understanding and love. But I would go into moments of despair. I would go into moments of suffering. I would go into moments of feeling like, what's going on? there's some failure, loneliness, pain. I could feel these things moving through me, and I'm just trying to hold that space and be with it. And something came to me. It was such a beautiful gift and so heart touching. And I've been doing it for the whole time. And Yogananda, and I've been in the teaching so much, right? But it's our own personal attunement. I've read these teachings. I've never seen this beautiful example of how to get free of negativity. And this is what Yogananda said. He said, whenever you feel afraid, and let's do it together, take your hand and move it from left to right on your heart. Close your eyes for a minute. Tune out your fear from the heart radio. And just as you tune out static from an ordinary radio, so if you continuously rub your heart and concentrate on this mantra, Lord, I am free. Lord, I am free. This is Yogananda's gift to you, this gift on Independence Freedom Day, to know whenever you're afraid, whenever you're disconnected, that you have this capacity to go to your heart directly and to allow this affirmation, this truth, to lift your consciousness, to allow the guru to enter into your beautiful temple. And it touches my heart every time I can feel a beautiful heart opening. And I'd like to share that with you. And maybe this Independence Day, it can be something that really you tune into and feel helpful in your life, because it brings us out of the lower consciousness and of feeling sick and despair and into a higher consciousness of feeling health and a sense of well-being, and that we're not alone, that our beings, our loves, are the divine, the universe, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is you believe in, the great sages, they're helping us. They're here. I love the Festival of Light where it says, where there is light, there is, where I thought was light was but darkness. And if we really look into our hearts, we can look back, maybe, take this anniversary Freedom Day to really say, like, yeah, maybe last year I saw something in a dark light, and more I thought it was really true. It felt really right for me. But the more I mature and grow spiritually, the more my attunement happens, I'm able to see in a new light. I'm able to see that what I really thought was light really was darkness. And more, I can bring this higher frequency, this higher light into my life through that awareness. And Yogananda said, get busy seeking God in meditation with devotional self-offering, and be the changeless witness of thoughts. Be still and know God. And this power of self-attunement is essential, that we have that, what we hold that we nurture that we put our effort into that. And so attunement with others is the second aspect Yogananda describes. And there was a time when Sri Yukteswar was with Yogananda and he said, who do you love? And Yogananda said, oh, I love God with all my heart and soul and mind and strength. And Sri Yukteswar said, And then Yogananda said, and I love all of God's children the same. And Sri Yukteswar nodded and gave a big smile. This knowing, it was so beautiful, the affirmation today, that consideration for others, and that kindness, and really tuning in to where people are in our life, to slow down enough to really see, like, maybe they don't need us to go and tell a story. Maybe they need us to sit and be with them for a little while. While Luca was passing out the Ananda chant books last time, and there was a woman that was meditating, and I could see his hesitation, and then I saw him tune in and go, okay, I'm not going to interrupt her there. I'm going to put it on the chair. It's like that. It's like when we just really understand, like, this person, what's best for this person, we'll give them the chant book. They may need it, but not interrupt them, right? That they were in their own space. And so that attunement with others is a way that we start expanding the collective within us. I love the Rumi saying, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. You know, we're all in this Bhagavad Gita war within ourself of our true self and false self. And the more and more we overcome it with each other and use each other and understand that, you know, God activates each of us. And the more we love someone, the more we're going to push their buttons, you know, because it's like, that's how it works. You know, it's like, because God says, you know, I know you love that person. So that person needs to see that part of themselves. So let's push that button, you know, and it's an opportunity, you know. A great teacher said, you know, don't shoot the messenger. The messenger is the mess ender. Get the message. This is coming from me. I need to transmute this within me. This is something that is ready to get clear because it's come up, it's been revealed to me. And so we return to gratitude instead of that mind, right? That mind can take us into stories, can take us into future, into a victim mentality instead of victory mentality. And more and more and more, we bring our energy inward, we tune in, we lift our vibration as the masters did, we become free. A great part of Autobiography of a Yogi is our thoughts are not individually rooted, but universally rooted, right? So we're tapping into either low thoughts of lower vibration, or we're tapping into the divine vibration in the thoughts of the holy saints and sages. And the third one is, you know, and we can ask ourselves, are we ready for this homecoming? Are we ready to receive this attunement and receivership to freedom? Because God attunement is so powerful. There's no real human effort which is going to take us to liberation. The leap from ego consciousness to Christ consciousness is really big, and we can't do it on our own. Self-attunement, other attunement, transforming our thoughts and feelings. That's how we begin more and more and more to tune in to the divine consciousness. A great devotee asked Swami, how do we improve our daily life? And he says, I ask, what would Master do? And when I walk and I chant Om Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru, bring yourself into that home of Om vibration, into the vibration of the Guru. A great example of that was in Autobiography of a Yogi with Teresa Newman. And she went through weekly trances of Jesus's crucifixion from Thursday to Friday. It was a reenactment. She went through the pain of it, the stigmata, all of it. And each week her wounds were open and began to bleed. And Yogananda came to visit her, and her expression, he said, when she was going through this trance, was both tortured and divine. And I think, well, that's exactly how Jesus was, his human self, you know, and the betrayal must have been so hard, yet he never lost sight of God. He never lost sight that this was a way to free so many people out of the bondage of darkness and ego. And she said she looks forward joyously every week to going through this reenactment. And she does it for her Lord. And Yogananda said, I realized at once that her strange life is intended by God to reassure all Christians of the authenticity of Jesus's life and to display the ever-liking bond between the Galilean master and his devotees. The more Yogananda attuned with Teresa, he began, right? So he tuned into her and he began to see the visions. He went through the passion. He went through that reenactment. He was able to feel the upliftment as Jesus held Christ consciousness, but also that physical aspect that at the same time. And so to be drawn to a true guru and receive these blessings for liberation is the result of incredible good karma. And I'll end with just talking about Nayaswami Devi, and she talked about the power of attunement of divine consciousness, and it's the most important factor for spiritual success. She said, by attuning our consciousness with God and Guru, we open ourselves to the flow of their magnetism. And the Guru's magnetism realigns the molecules of our karmic tendencies and lifts them towards God rather than are unconsciously being pulled down. That's the power. That's the karmic power of getting free from these old ways of seeing the world and being in the world. And Yogananda said, as my attunement deepened inwardly, I could feel Sri Yukteswar, my guru's stamp of approval. May we all use our capacity to know self, to love and care for others, and to follow the guru to God, so that we now earn the cosmic rays of approval. Happy Independence Day, everyone. We're all on our way to a beautiful liberation, freedom in God. Amen.